Down, down, down the road, down the witch's road. Come with me, my friends, to glory and the end. Word. Witch's Road. Straight out of the Witch's Road.
Okay,
Anyway. Uh,
stop right now.
her name's Agatha. Yeah. Anyway, welcome back, guys, to another review of Agatha. A long, full series of spoiler review. All episodes will drop on Disney Plus. Make sure you guys go check it out. Now, we already gave you my review, a non-spoiler review of the first 4 episodes, but now we're going to all 9 episodes, spoiler filled and everything, and we're just gonna go right into it. And now if you guys see my videos, I have not been the biggest fan of this show. Even when it was announced, I wasn't really, on board with it. But I was very adamant about it. I think this show, that being announced was a mistake and everything. Like we have bigger things to play. But as a reviewer, as a critic in my job, I had to review it. Now after going through the first 4 episodes, I still wasn't, I was like, that's all right, whatever. I only care about 3 characters. But then at the end of the season, I could say that I cared a little bit more about, all the characters. And my opinion actually changed to this is probably one of my favorite, not the best, but one of my favorite Disney Plus shows. I felt were the momentum picked up, and I felt pacing wise from start to finish. This was, you can tell that this show was planned and thought out. It wasn't being lazy, and it actually was being methodical in terms of its execution in camera shots and storytelling and editing, music, and also performances and setting seeds and planting to pay off the finale. And but still staying, in the world of the MCU, but still staying self-contained. I'll say that this show was a win. Yes. Anyway, you're rubbing my face. I know. Go rub in my face, man. I know.
What? I rubbing under the bro. Like I ain't doing that. All right. I'm just glad that people that at least most of the people that stuck with the show and didn't give up, like per se by episode 3, saw that while yes, it was a very rocky start, it progressively got better, starting with episode 4 all the way to the end. In my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that after episode, like, see, because I made a video, I was saying after episode 5, and as like you see here, the background of this, the moment when this, now Billy or whatever, the team and stuff, come and actually reveal himself, that was the turning point of the show, and then it honestly went up from here. Literally at this exact moment. And that's where I got pissed off at Marvel because they have an issue with their 4 episodes. Now, this show isn't perfect. It still follows the Marvel TV show formula that still hurts them with these damn 23-minute episodes, including credits. And unlike another show, which we'll talk about later, another video, unlike one episode has enough meat and an entree, this is more like appetizers. And then even when you get 9 appetizers, you still feel like, hey, am I even satisfied? And for some shows, yes, but most of them, no. And as I've seen from ratings, viewership, and everything like that. But this show was like, oh, okay, I'm liking the flavor of this. First 4, I'm like, okay, come on, give me some, I dealt with this whole course before. I was like, oh, okay, this is new. I was like, all right, let's watch this now. So wait, is it Wednesday yet? Yeah, I'm literally waiting for Wednesday to actually watch this week by week. However, would I wait for this for the first 4 episodes? Probably not if I wasn't already committed. And that's the key. But let's get into it. Like with the show Agatha all along, there's a few performances or characters we want to talk about, which is the main title character, Agatha Harkness, played by Catherine Hahn. She still was to me from start to finish was the best part of the show. Even though from WandaVision, I felt like her, her performance is still definitely on screen as she's a scene stealer. She is a character actor, and she tends to own this role. And especially with Agatha, just like even when she's being evil, being a menace. You still have a grin on your face because that's what she is. But in this show, you kind of see those layers being deconstructed in terms of who she is. And one thing that I still at the end of for beginning of this episode or beginning of episode 1 to the end episode 9 is that you get this arc of her of understanding where she's been from inception to now, and but also not change the fact that yes, she is a villain, she is a bad person, but she's made just bad decisions, but there's still many layers to her, and I felt that with her that you understand her more, but like yeah, no, she's still a person, and that fact that she's not getting some type of redemption other than just her closing that arc that that she's had for escaping death, literally, which we'll get into later, but and actually owning her fate and actually, sacrificing herself, even though she don't want to admit it, she still sacrificed herself for that. But yeah, but how did you feel with Agatha's like journey from beginning of this season to the end, and just terms of how she kind of go from how we first got introduced to her to where we are now, knowing her in her own show?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree in saying that just when it comes to Agatha, like, regardless of the fact, like, it's kind of funny when it comes to both of these shows that we're going to be talking about, but just in terms of Agatha, it's like, by the end, she's still very much a bad guy. Like, she's still very much evil. Like, it's just now you understand the reason for why she makes the decisions that she does or the impulses that she does, stemming from the loss of her son or her connection with death. Again, we'll get to that later, or the connection she forms with the teen, aka Billy, aka Wiccan. You understand it even if you don't agree with it all the time, or you don't like the decisions that she makes because of that. Like, for instance, what she does in episode 5 to Alice, or certain snide remarks that she says, or what she did to characters back in the day. Like, she's still very much a bad guy. That's not changed. She's still very much the villain we met her as back in WandaVision. There's just a little bit more sympathy there, and a little bit more understanding. It doesn't change the fact. And hell, the fate that she ended up in pretty much reflects the only way her path could have gone outside of just being dead. But yeah, it's like Agatha, still a really good character. Catherine Hahn just has so much charisma when it comes to this character. In every single other character that she, interacts with, there's a nice bouncing off of characters in both a negative way, like negative towards them way, and a positive way. Like, she's just, she's one of those characters that just bounces off of people very well. Sometimes for the wrong reasons, but yeah. So you're muted.
I'm sorry. And also, like, again, one thing that we have in this current time, that we have two shows, one from different, one from Marvel, one from DC, villain characters, and the fact that both these, shows are deciding not to make the character an anti-hero, which is one thing that I fear a lot, that I feel like a lot of studios are missing. That we're still going to get to this whole villain era of seeing their stories, which again, it's opportunity for great storytelling. However, they get not following the whole Disney-fied curse of every Disney villain is actually a good person. They just misunderstood hero, right? Like Cruella de Vil, like Maleficent, like all these other spin-off films that they make from a villain's perspective. And I'm just like, okay, like no, there's the bad guy, there's a good guy, and then here we go from like another film, Marvel Thunderbolts, where they're talking about like no, there's always about good guys and bad guys, but there are bad guys, but there are worse guys, right? But like yeah, so and Agatha is a bad person. She's even to the point where she gets to the episode, which was episode 9, where we actually see her backstory, where her son Nicholas Scratch, which we see 6-year-old kid and everything, and finding out that this whole witches road or ballad thing was a complete sham, only for her just to steal magic from other witches and stuff, and with that also using her son to feed her addiction. Like that's like, just think of that, just also like mentally about that. It's just like, yeah, that's sick, and death was already at her front door, like before the child was born. Like, nope. And even then giving her the willingness to give her some time, but ultimately, all roads lead to death. But yeah, but aside from that, I felt like even the decision that she made, her dynamic with the other like witches in the show, I felt were again, I felt was entertaining to watch again. But I still felt there was still a satisfying conclusion to this story. To hopefully not seeing that seeing Agatha season 2, but just seeing her, in other stories, which we'll get into. But yeah, let's talk about the main person. We're one of the main people here, Billy. Um, listen, all right, so I think that Joe Locke did an amazing job, and again, still is one of my favorite characters from the show. But I thought he did a fantastic job here, from start to finish. The fact that before the reveal of who he was, that how he basically was playing dumb, in a lot of situations, but in some things where he was really naive in because he didn't know what he created. He didn't know the essence of his power. Seeing how he became the entity, Billy Kaplan or Billy Maximoff, right? And I felt in a unique way was like, okay, that makes sense. But that was the most interesting, entertaining thing from this show was watching, from WandaVision how the previous or Billy Kaplan died, and then Billy Maximoff got his soul, came in and everything, and that was cool. But again, when this moment happened here, and I was like, okay, this was a turning point in the show. And I was like, yes, go ahead. But yeah, what was your thoughts on Billy throughout this whole show?
Yeah, look, I just gotta say, the whole freaking sequence of them, even though we knew, and even though Funko Pop is freaking spoiled it too, even though we knew, just the sequence of events that went to that episode, what was it, that episode 5 reveal with him revealing himself as Billy, and then the next episode giving the full backstory, almost kind of in a sense being like that similar episode of WandaVision where we got the reasonings as to why things were happening, was done so well. And yes, 100% my favorite character of the show. I can't wait to see more of Wiccan in the future. I think Joe Locke embodies this character really well for the current age of the MCU. And, he feels very much like that little boy Billy that we met in WandaVision, but just a little bit different because of the fact that he is inhabiting the body of somebody that died at the end of WandaVision that we didn't find out about until now. But yeah, it's just the whole playing dumb. It's like, again, we knew, like even before this episode and even before Funko spoiled it, we knew it was going to be Wiccan. But there's one thing about knowing, and there's another thing about saying, and then there's a whole nother thing about the presentation that goes into that. Because they could have just simply said Billy Maximoff, but no, they made it a narrative thing where it's like, he keeps playing dumb until Agatha catches on, and then boom, he's like, forget it, Brang, I'm my mother's son, all right. Like, just there's a difference between saying and showing within the context of the show. Mm-hmm. And that moment was so good. And then the following episode going into the whole backstory, seeing the ties of William/Billy with the witches that were on the witches' road, seeing everything from his perspective of dying to Billy inhabiting his body, to him finding out the truth, the return of Ralph Boner, and then seeing his perspective on what happened back in episode 1, again, just like that one episode of WandaVision, really freaking good. And then his character just kept elevating every single episode until episode 8, when it was full-on Wiccan, when he was in that full-on suit, which I really, really like. So yeah, Joe Locke, you did a fantastic job, and I am glad Wiccan is here. We will, of course, talk a little bit more about his brother and all that going forward, but yeah, good.
Yeah, listen, I said this because immediately this happened. I was watching the show with my wife, and again, the moment when this moment happened came because I was like, okay, all right. And one thing that kept coming up with this show was like, hey, it's just the gayest show in Marvel. Now I'm gonna say a quick answer. Yes, it is. There's a lot of LGBT representation, like blatantly. I think more than any like Marvel property since inception. Like honestly, this show with the characters Agatha, with other Death, Billy, and other people. But the game, but this is how in my personal opinion, even though you don't really have a big issue with it, is like how you're showing that representation in a good way, but that's not making it the message. It's like we're not talking about, you know, Billy focusing on his sexuality and coming out realizing that he's gay or anything like that. Like no, like where he has a boyfriend at during the time of the show. They express that, they don't hide from that as part of him. They mention about sexuality, but they don't make it a big freaking deal, like saying, "Oh, there's something like that's the center focal point of the story." The fact that you have some type of lesbian relationship between, Agatha and um, Death is still like is different from the comics, but still giving the same like role that Death played in the comics, in terms of relationship with other characters, but also the metaphorical relationship of Death with Agatha, talking about her escaping death, when she has the dark hold, the deal and promise that she made. Now, I feel also like looking at the flashback episode, there was a lot of things that were left on the cutting room floor that they didn't really explain, which I think of one part is a negative. Like, how did she meet Death? What was their relationship like? Who was the father of Nicholas Scratch and all that stuff. Also the more of the relationship of her mother, like Agatha's mother. Like we see that in WandaVision. We see it's the same actress from in the Agatha in I think episode 5. Yeah, episode 5. And but we didn't really see like why did her mother say that she was born evil, and all those things, that I think that was kind of that was like negative for me. But again, with Billy, I'd say with him, fully embracing his powers, but still not being OP, but just being interesting, but being OP in a different way, of not realizing the full extent of his powers, but not feeling like he has plot armor on. He's creating the narrative just like his mother, which I thought was great. But again, the moment this happened here, I was like, I didn't care if dude was gay. I was like, slay, bitch, slay, slay, slay. I didn't care. I didn't care. He's like, keep my mom's name out your freaking mouth. I'm gonna show you today. Yeah, everybody gonna eat dirt, literally. Get it? Yes. No, I thought that was funny. But yeah, now we get to the other big reveal, which is that was the most interesting. One other interesting part of the show was Aubrey Plaza. First of all, before we get to Aubrey Plaza again, anytime she's on screen, it's just like okay, her being herself and anything that was just a scene grabber and stuff. Even if she's coming along, being somebody as the new Green Witch in the Coven, and then before you get revealed that she's like the original Green Witch, which is kind of different from the comics and stuff, but still playing the cosmic entity of her, being Death, in a very unique way. And a thing I just never saw coming. I was like, wait, what? And I was like, and to a point that I hope in some form or fashion that she could come cinematically. I don't know where, I don't know how, but I'm just saying that that's a powerful character. And I felt out of all the cosmic beings that you introduce, like you talk about the Watcher, you talk about Eternity and Thor: Love and Thunder, but like to actually have a actual character present, to be as a cosmic force in the MCU, like others we've seen, but Aubrey Plaza I felt would be a great addition to that. But as she gets revealed to be, Death, I thought the way they did that was setting the seeds up, even when they're on the Ouija board, and they were like when they were like moving, like, oh, who's here? DEA, and then when it goes to Death and she starts laughing, I was like, it's perfect. But also even just visually how she looked, like the way how this show going to where we're talking to about the practical effects of this, like that whole face mask, even though part of it was CGI, like that is also a prosthetic like look, and I was like, what?
Like I would like if you look on either Marvel's Instagram or with the person who is in charge of it. Speaking of which, shout out to the costume department on this freaking show for and the like production on just the Witch's Road, because this makes it, in a sense, especially with everything that we now know, feel like WandaVision, but just a little bit more practical, like a little bit more tangible. And that's one of the things I really like about like this. A little bit of his CGI, but if you look on Marvel's Instagram or on the like costume designer's Instagram, that shit's real. Like part of it's fake, but most of it's real. And it's just like the little details like that where they could have just CGI'd Aubrey Plaza's face just to put, you know, the part of the skull there. No, they went the extra length. So that way it felt tangible. That's one of the things I really like about the show. A lot of this shit, even though we're dealing with magic and wizardry, feels real. That's one of the great things about the show is that it really just feels tangible. Every piece of it, every single set of, you know, trials, all the costumes, costume changes, superhero and supervillain suits, all just feel real in a way that I haven't felt in a while, honestly.
Yeah. Now, but I think also too, it goes into not just old style filmmaking, especially involving witches, like you know, like Bewitch and using more practical elements of that. But again, I think for me, I still wanted a little bit more magic, like you know, action wise, with this. But again, they still kept me entertained, at least you know, the after episode 5 to you know get to that point. But aside from that, yeah, I thought Aubrey Plaza did an amazing job with her. The fact that she wanted to get Billy because he broke the rules, like which is like the concept of that. I was like, okay, of course that makes sense. I was like, if they're, you know,
I don't think I gave like my feelings on Aubrey Plaza's performance. I just gotta say, and one thing that I just gotta say, Funko Pop, please calm the down when it comes to these releases, because while I knew about Wiccan, the fact that literally just out of fucking nowhere I see a picture of Funko with Billy in his Wiccan suit and then Death with something that looks very much like Aubrey Plaza, I'm like, bro, I had to bury that away in my brain for a while. But then when it came up, I'm like, oh yeah, fucking Funko. But yeah, like, but besides that point, but seriously though, calm down. Aubrey Plaza was just so freaking good in the show. I just got to say, she was just really freaking good at playing such an unhinged. Because like that's the thing, she played the character that was both comforting and unhinged, and that's very much Death. Like even if some things are different, she very much is the Mistress Death that we know from the comics that swayed Thanos, that had that little bit of that connection with Deadpool. She is very much that character brought to life because she is both comforting and chaotic. And that is very much Death. And Aubrey Plaza, please come back. Please, like, we need you back ASAP. If anything, in my personal opinion, the soonest of anything, either being whenever the freak Doctor Strange 3 happens or Secret Wars. Please just come back soon. You were great. You were great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because I thought just her personality, dynamic with other characters, stuff like that made sense. But another point we didn't talk about was really with the other rest of Coven, which that was one of the weakest parts for me. The first 4 episodes, I felt they just weren't giving that much for me to make them interesting. And it wasn't until later when I figured out like one of them, at least the one last surviving one, is actually the cousin of Ghost Rider. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, all right. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just happy I'm just happy the black woman made it out. You know, that's like, you know.
Yeah. Thank God. But I do also agree in saying that the first 4 episodes, it's like outside of Agatha, Wiccan, and Rio, you don't really care. But it's like as you go forward, it's like Alice, protection witch, and she has to deal with all this generational trauma, and you're happy that she is, and then you're mad when she dies the following episode, saving Agatha. And then, well, Mrs. Davis, that was honestly her role in this series was basically just to get us to understand that you could die in this whole thing. But then, my God, the MVP of the freaking show, the freaking MVP, the Queen of Cups herself, man. That whole episode was so fucking good. That whole episode, connecting her weird little like moments from the previous episodes and showing it as one cohesive narrative of her life going in an infinite loop of life and death. going all the way till the end where she sacrifices herself for everyone. That by far, like outside of the penultimate episode and the Wiccan episode, definitely has to be one of my favorite episodes of this entire show. It was just done so freaking well.
Yeah, I feel like obviously you have some popular like Broadway actors as well attached to this show. But
Patty LaPone.
Yeah, like I felt like with that episode again, it gave the first seed of connecting previous episodes in terms of your perspective and timeline and stuff like that, and then kind of making all a continuous stream of connecting the dots. And they did that several times, but that's how the point of show don't tell. Like some things were happening random. I'm like, yeah, what's going on? But it wasn't just for like, oh, just to be a joke. It wasn't just to be, oh, like just a waste or filler or something like that. It was planned. And when something is planned like that, it makes sense. Like, okay, I give you credit because that actually was good storytelling. You set, it's like the loaded gun on the table where, in filmmaking. We see a loaded gun there because it means that it's going to come to effect later on in a previous scene, right? And in fact, they utilize that multiple times in this episode. I don't think it was redundant. I thought it was earned. Like I felt like in the last like 3 remaining episodes they did that. Because they did it again in episode 8 when you find out that Billy created the road, and then they did it again when you find out that Agatha's backstory and everything, that yes, the whole ballad was a lie. But yeah, it was a lot of things that was interesting with this. But like each, as you mentioned this about trauma, like what parallels of this of WandaVision is that WandaVision was talking about the stages of grief. This was talking about dealing with trauma or generational trauma, and many different factors, right? Like trauma with women, trauma with after car accidents, trauma of like past relationship of loss, um, uh, going through family trauma, death, in families and stuff like that. And stuff like that, and childhood trauma, all that comes to compass with that. And I felt like they did a good job of that being the overall theme of this show, of knowing to work through them, even when you have to create something yourself. You create something where you're trying to seek answers, trying to resolve something, ends up giving something that some other people might need, right? But I think after we kind of close off on this, because it's like where it leads to next, is that the big one was about Tommy, about Billy wanting to find his brother Tommy so he can get so he can reunite with him. But they did a really good job in terms of connecting that scene of like, at least now we have a body where Tommy's at somewhere in a different somewhere in the world, but we'll probably see that maybe in Vision Quest or something like that. I don't know, but that's I feel like they're going down this whole Children Crusade storyline, Young Avengers. I feel like that's what they're trying to head down to, which makes sense. For those you know, what Children Crusade is basically the storyline where they go find a reunite with Wanda, with Billy and Tommy, and the Young Avengers come together and basically try to find Wanda, and they do reunite with her. Which again, Wanda was another big talking point about is she alive? Is she not?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's a whole thing. Like the director, like Feige and the director said to specifically say she's gone. Like to say she's gone, not dead, not like in like somewhere, just gone. That of course means she won't be around for a little bit, but we're definitely planning on bringing her back. And when you mentioned Children's Crusade, remember the villain of Children's Crusade was Doctor Doom.
Yeah. No. I don't see any of this happening until after Secret Wars. I really don't see any project
who knows where they're going.
Yeah, I'm just saying because just at this point they don't have enough time right now. Like they got stuff to do. But yeah, like with Wanda, definitely the fact that Death Lily didn't say no, she's not dead. It's like the witch is gone. She's gone. But she's not. Now, if some possibility, if you're gonna say, hey, in in the Secret Wars that she might be in a different universe or something, okay, maybe. Well, I want to see her sooner rather than later. Yes, because she's a powerful character. And to go against Doctor Doom, I don't know, like who else do you have to actually to be a heavy hitter to take that? I don't know. I really don't know how this is going to go. We need to get through at the end of 2025 to at least get to see something how it's going to fulfill. Because I have no clear slate of any of these Avengers, these next two Avengers films whatsoever. But yeah, I think that, again they set the seeds for moving along with Billy and Agatha as Agatha be a companion like she did in the comics. Because she did the same thing. I think in the Vision and Scarlet Witch in issue 3 in like in 1985. That's where no Agatha transitioned to the afterlife and actually aided Wanda in creating Billy and Tommy when they were first initially creating the comics and stuff. But yeah, now aside from that, I mean, no one go over, but I'll probably do this a separate video about this because the same things that people are complaining about with this show is the same thing that people are complaining about the Acolyte. And Acolyte was a failure. It was a failure. Statistically, financially, everything was a failure. But the same things on paper seem similar. LGBT representation, female driven, show, tackling characters that a lot of people don't really know about. But at the same time, the fandom is also is in a state where they didn't ask for this show, or also the messaging that might be implied with the representation of it all that. But why did this show work and the Acolyte didn't? We'll make a video and actually sit down, break that down. I think that's an interesting discussion. Like literally on paper, I'm like, watch this. Like, okay, you have an episode where it explains a previous episode, giving answers that gave the questions you had in episode 2, episode 3, whatever. And then after episode 5, they give you some answers about what happened, and then give you a different perspective. And then what Agatha, instead of what Acolyte did was being convoluted, this show actually made things more concise and like a continuous line. And it made sense. It actually was very clever in terms of how they did that. And I think really the big thing that goes back to it's execution. I think again it goes back to the writing of these characters, and I feel like they had, and obviously Jack Schaefer, she had a proven track record with these characters, with these shows, and also knew exactly what her target audience was, but also how to take one step further with just storytelling, not trying to blow it over with $1 million budget, plus, and stuff like that. So, but yeah, bravo to Marvel. Before we end things off, what was the final rating you give out of 10?
I give it 8.5. Again, it was a really good show. It is not the best Marvel show or the best Marvel project within the last couple of years, but it is definitely not the worst, nor is it mediocre in my opinion. It is a good show that is it has a rocky start. That's the thing. It has a rocky start. But once you can get past like episode 2 or episode 3, you're in for a good ride, in my opinion. With good characters, very like good writing, in my honest opinion. It doesn't play us like babies. Like it's confident in what it's trying to do, and it executes it in honestly a way that I think worked pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that well, I'll say my rating more is like I think a 7.5 out of 10. Because like I felt like the first 4 episodes were slow. But aside from like episodes 1 and 2, which I liked, but again, I just think it's also on the Marvel formula of the first 4 episodes, kind of just setting the pace, and then until episode 5, be like, oh my god, what happened? But the big thing was I don't feel like this show was a waste of my time, unlike Secret Invasion, unlike other shows. I think this again, it had a start, a middle, and the end, and it was clear. It wasn't like it was losing track on things and stuff. It was self-contained, but at the same time drawing things to set seeds for itself moving forward, but still not making it being the overall. Yeah, go ahead. What?
And another thing, this show, out of most of the Disney Plus Marvel shows we've gotten, felt like the one that didn't feel like a movie chopped up into episodes. It felt like a regular TV series.
Mm-hmm. Well, now because also you're in a separate division now. They have a with Marvel television, and they're shooting it as a show, not just as a film and stuff. But yeah, but I'll give it a 7.5 out of 7.5 out of 10. But yeah, this guys conclude our review for Agatha all along season 1, probably the only season, but not the last time probably see these characters. But yeah, guys, we'll be seeing you guys next video. We got stuff dropping very, very soon, interviews and also other videos as well. Make sure you guys follow us Instagram, Twitter, TikTok as well. We're trying to expand more on the TikTok and everything. And we'll see you guys next video. Peace.